I'm Sarah Kate from Passion Planet. I would like to share my thoughts with you on the human experience and how to merge our dueling consciousnesses into one to upgrade the human vessel. In our current time, we're discovering duality, conflict, we're having trouble defining consciousness. And I have an idea as to why that could be. I'm offering a possibility that could be. This is a possible explanation of why we are the way we are. So, consciousness. Consciousness and energy work as a team. They created the universe. Consciousness travels in a vehicle of vibration from energy, the resonance. So this team is the masculine and feminine, the god and the goddess. Now, I believe that this whole dimension is to learn for those two to work together and become one. So, as evolution occurred, humanity was created, over who knows how long, in order for these two things to work together to raise the frequency of the spirit and the consciousness in order to ascend. So, I don't know the time frame on all of this, but we're talking millions of years. I truly believe there was a human race on this earth that had consciousness and spirit vibration for operating that vessel, okay? There was one hemisphere, a single hemisphere that this human race used. They were telepathic, they were intuitive, and they were very populated, which means they were able to access a collective consciousness because there was a network of energy between them all, such as the whales use. And they were able to send and receive information to each other because the network was so strong. And they were also able to tap into information within the energy in the universe, which made them evolve extremely quickly, a very fast rate. Now, the skulls that were pulling up out of the ground with the elongated skull, perhaps that was because their telepathy evolved the skull into that, so they could receive messages easier. Now, this race also had a spirit, a vibration, an energy field, a chi, an aura, whatever you want to call it. We all know we have it. I will call it the vibe, and it's the spirit, okay? So this consciousness in this single hemisphere worked with the spirit. The spirit would come out of the body and feel external reality to report to the hemisphere, which then used a cloud connection of everyone else, and everyone's thoughts and ideas were all in one place, and it was heaven on earth. I mean, imagine if you could merge everyone's thoughts and experiences and ideas into one and access that to make your decisions and to experience each moment. Wouldn't that be awesome? Because your possibilities would be endless to what things could be, and your chances for success would be really high. Now, at some point, something had to happen to cause this hemisphere to create another hemisphere, okay? This first consciousness that was processed by this first hemisphere, which is the right one now in us, was purposed for experience in order to raise the vibration, raise the frequency, prepare for ascension. Okay? There was a catastrophic event. Now, this race knew this event was coming, perhaps thousands of years before it actually did. They were able to prepare for this event. They knew they needed to save humanity. So, they started building pyramids. And this insight would explain why we see the same knowledge that was very advanced all over the world, because they had a network that they shared information, and it was telepathy. That's how they communicated. But you could talk to someone across the world if you chose to. And we know that's possible because that's what the whales do. Now, when this catastrophic event was upon them, they prepared, they built the Great Pyramid, and I think this could have occurred close to 1 million years ago. I don't have a time frame for you, but that was Noah's Ark. That is why they mummified themselves, to save our human DNA. Now there's two possibilities here that could have happened. One, if they were that advanced and that scientific, and we all know the ancients were very, very smart and had a lot of knowledge. So they possibly could have genetically engineered humanity 2.0, which is us, giving us another hemisphere which was purposed for survival. Now, this hemisphere could have evolved, or it could have been designed. That we don't know. Could have been both. Probably both. This humanity 2.0 had to be able to have a memory bank in order to access information about past experience to make a prediction on the future. That way they didn't get hurt. Don't touch that fire again. The last time you did it, it's hot. It'll burn you. They didn't. Humanity 1.0 didn't need that because they had the collective to tell them that. Now, the left hemisphere was created in the image of the right. And it is our Savior. It is humanity's Savior. Okay, so spirits that humanity 1.0 used with their consciousness to feel external reality is a very innocent, pure energy. When the catastrophe happened and nearly wiped out humanity, spirit wasn't able to extend because it was too painful. There was no collective to communicate with. All it felt was pain. There was no love. And we're talking, we went from heaven on earth to hell on earth, probably in a matter of 40 days. So spirit went dormant, and it retracted, and it went dormant, and it stayed that way until conditions were primed for it to come back out. Now, an amoeba does this. Lots of things do this. If something can't handle its external reality, it's going to hide. So perhaps this energy field created a protective shell to be used to feel external reality that could handle it. This was the creation of soul. Soul is the bilayer to spirit. And it is It is a component to our being to help us feel our external reality. Now, this soul vibe really took a beating because there was nothing to feel but pain and survival. There was no collective consciousness anymore. There was a new operating system that was designed for survival. So it was constantly in fear. Soul was trying to communicate with it about how painful everything was. And eventually, the new consciousness, the left hemisphere, decided to evolve. When I say decided to, we're talking it could have been designed this way or it could have evolved this way. It created our senses to examine our external reality, to report to itself, because soul was taking such a beating and there was nothing to feel that was good. This is where perception came in. Perception is there for when the conditions are traumatic, to be able to see it in a new light and not be so traumatized and not hurt so bad. Perception is our key out of this, folks. Perception, which is part of our survival consciousness, can be retrained to see everything as beautiful instead of everything as painful. When you do that, spirit starts to surface because it's not so scared of the conditions. Now, how do we upgrade ourselves? Because we're constantly in conflict over which consciousness is the right one to use. Well, we need them both, or we wouldn't have them both. So how do we make them both merge into one and work for us? You have to start with perception retraining. Now, the left hemisphere is the verbal communication that goes on in your mind, and the right hemisphere is the visual pictures that go on in your mind. Okay? We need them both, but one has to be dominant, and that would be the divine collective consciousness picture right hemisphere. You make that one dominant because we know that the left hemisphere is willing to work, or it wouldn't have created perception to be retrained. It's willing to work with the right hemisphere because you can train it to. So that's your answer. You have to train one side to work with the other. How do you do that? Well, when you train your perception to see things in another way, when you have a negative thought, you stop that negative thought and you replace it with an option of something positive. This will cause a synapse in your brain to start forming new pathways to cause this to be habit. Okay? Then when you start seeing the beauty in everything, and you start practicing being in a present moment, because that's where the right hemisphere is, or that's where it analyzes, is a current moment. The left hemisphere, past and future only. So we have the ability now to go over our past, analyze our present moment, and manifest into the future. That's pretty powerful. But the present moment is the one that's the most important. And the divine consciousness makes decisions based on the collective as priority, whereas the left hemisphere consciousness makes decisions for survival of the individual as a priority. So we need to put the right hemisphere consciousness priority so that humanity can stay in a place of love and happiness. Now, this left hemisphere that's been in survival mode for God knows how long, it needs to be repurposed. It needs a job, but we don't need to survive anymore. We need to live. So you need to repurpose your survival consciousness into a growth consciousness where it handles the trauma and the pain, finds a way to make it have a positive outcome that will raise your frequency. Spirit likes that. spirit then will make friends with the left consciousness. The right hemisphere also likes that, because the higher your frequency, the happier you are. And we see that in the waveform of love. So, what do we do with the soul? That soul, they had taken it. They had taken a beating. Here's what we do with the soul. We merge our two consciousnesses. We start feeding our spirit. Soul is made out of particles in the universe through incarnations. Okay? You can't really just take those particles out of this dimension and ascend to another one. I don't think that's possible. So what do? This is where balance and karma comes in. You use those particles for survival. So to balance your karma, you must help someone else survive. When you help someone else survive, you start neutralizing this energy within this soul, and it becomes light as a feather. You strengthen your spirit by doing things that it likes. Spirit needs to be honored through virtues. That is how you strengthen your spirit. Through virtues, through sound, and you can strengthen it with the senses. It likes frankincense and myrrh, the one I always use. You've got to strengthen that spirit. So when the spirit gets strengthened, it actually can release this outer layer, like a birthing, like cracking out of a shell, like shedding its skin. It can do this. I know this because I've done it. I saw my incarnations flash before my eyes. And when my soul left, I saw a very bright light that I took it to, and I delivered it there, and I gave it a hug, and I told it thank you, and I took it to heaven, because it needs to heal, and that's where it belongs, because it saved our spirit and protected it. The spirit needs to surface again. So, setting your soul free, allowing spirit vibration to come back out and analyze the external reality with two processors to communicate with, one for trauma and one for experience. I mean, that is going to be humanity 3.0. And it's the Trinity. It's the Father, the original hemisphere, the Son, the one that was created in its image, and the Holy Spirit. And these need to operate together for a human to reach its highest potential. Thank you. I hope everyone had a good time listening to this. And, I'm not claiming it to be truth, because the only truth is a current moment, and now. The now is the only truth. But I am offering it as a possible explanation and a solution. Love you all. Peace.